The restaurants you love, the food you crave, and the people that make it all happen. We tell their stories on the Paper Trails podcast with Albemarle Paper Supply.
What's going on, guys? How are you? And welcome back to the Paper Trails podcast. This is season 3, episode 15, and I am really excited, fired up to have my friend Frank Kaltsounis from Ilios Crafted Greek. Funny situation. This is my first time having the same guest twice, and so Frank and I
honored. Yeah.
So Frank and I have done a podcast at least 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, at least
with another concept that these guys used to have, and so but we're excited to have him back on the pod with an exciting brand that they have, that they're growing, that they're expanding. And so Frank, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
So yeah, let's talk a little bit. Obviously, you know what? For people that may not know your background, really quick, let's go through, a minute or two, your background, culinary school,
Yep.
kind of the whole thing real fast.
Cliff Notes?
Cliff Notes, yes.
Yeah, Charlotte native. I, a kid of immigrant parents, like a lot of us,
Yep.
first generation. So actually born here. Actually, my dad had his first restaurant was right around the corner from where we are now.
Okay.
So kind of full circle kind of moment with that. But yeah, grew up in Charlotte, left out of high school, went straight to culinary school in New York City. My background was in pastry, French pastry. So kind of that was my foundation of cooking education. Through the course of the next few years, worked in Charlotte, worked in Atlanta, came back to Charlotte and kind of joined forces with my brother in Stratos Lambos, my brother Angelo in Stratos Lambos. We opened Ilios Noche, which is 21 years now.
Wow.
In South Charlotte, yeah. I was just a kid when we opened.
Was that the first restaurant you guys opened together?
That's the first one we opened up, yeah.
Okay.
Ilios Noche, yeah. Still going strong in South Charlotte and full service. Ironically opened as a fast casual,
Okay.
but because of kind of the demand of the neighborhood, kind of wanted a full service restaurant.
Okay.
So we transitioned into that 20 years ago.
How fast did you make that adjustment? Just curious.
Within the first 6 months.
Okay.
We had saw concepts across the country that were doing kind of similar to what we're doing here, like a Chipotle style service.
Yep.
And we thought that was, we wanted to grow on that concept. And so we opened kind of that way with like the half service type of style. But the restaurant out there was a little early. It was in a part of town which was becoming very heavily populated, but not a lot of restaurants to choose from. So we felt like we were just kind of, and the consumer wasn't really used to that style of service back then.
I mean, 21 years ago.
Yeah, I'm not going to say we're ahead of our time, but a little bit, because there weren't the Chipotles of the world to
Yeah.
people understand how the counter service works.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
now that it's a little more common, people are used to it, kind of helps our concept now. So yeah, we transitioned to full service, added beer, wine, full bar, and now it's evolved to what it is now, kind of like a polished, casual restaurant.
Yeah, fantastic restaurant, by the way. I've been there many times, great food. So, all right, Ilios Noche's first business together that you guys did. And
Yeah,
then,
we've done a couple other concepts as well.
Uh-huh.
We had a really cool taco concept in Charlotte. Our biggest was the diner. We had a really strong run there for a number of years. Built it from scratch, a huge investment. It did very well for us. Coming out of COVID, a lot of things changed.
Yep.
Probably one of the biggest thing that changed was kind of our mindset as far as like growth moving forward. That was a very hard restaurant to grow with. It just demanded a lot from us.
Yeah.
Our schedules, our time, physically, mentally. So it was great for us, but it just wasn't maybe the best, not to sound cheesy, but the best like part of our journey moving forward that we wanted to get to.
Yeah.
So we decided to divest from that and then focus on this concept now. So, thank God it's been working good for us. And we have plans for growth, but we wanted to just kind of rechannel our energy. Ilios Noche obviously still going strong. We have some other concepts we operate, but we just really want to focus on this moving forward.
Did you guys always know you wanted a fast casual since 21 years ago when that was kind of the idea?
We always talked about it.
Okay.
It was always in the back of our minds. We say it every day. We didn't invent fast casual. We kind of fell into it. We jumped in the pool with everybody else. After seeing the way that consumers are changing, their spending habits, their dining habits, so we always kind of talked about it, how, going from a restaurant like the Diner, which was, almost 9,000 square feet with 80 employees.
Monster of a restaurant.
A monster of an operation.
Breakfast, lunch, dinner.
Yeah, 7 days a week, just a huge operation, and just kind of seeing, the juice and the squeeze kind of conversation.
Yeah.
Of just how do we just kind of divide and conquer and just have smaller concepts that could be just as good as a business model, but just a lot easier to control.
I think that another thing to think about is, as a business owner, having multiple locations, earning income from multiple locations, it's really hard to scale something like a diner, breakfast, lunch, dinner.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's a mammoth of a business that requires so much of you.
Yes.
Is that like?
No, 100%. A place like that, and that's a very unique concept. It's not, but a lot of other concepts are relatable, whether you have a high-end steakhouse or, an Italian restaurant.
Yes,
you need like a lot of specialty employees. To where at the Diner we had to have a pastry chef, we had to have a great prep chef, we had to have the guy on the eggs that has to be the best around, we had to have a good saute guy, bartenders, managers. So it's, going in and coming out of COVID, those employees were just really, really hard to come by. So it just created a very demanding from us.
Yeah.
Because you're short. Those couple years from end of 19 into 21, 22 were just like the wild, wild west.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure
really
you saw
was.
it. You saw it everywhere. Things that you never imagined were going on. There was days where I'm in there at 6 a.m. Starting the grits because we don't have cooks, and in my mind I'm like, should I be doing this? As an owner.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
you have to because
of
you're
course.
an owner.
Yeah, of course.
So it's just it just created it kind of further reinforced our mindset of like, listen, the diner's great. And we say it all the time, for like two guys that just love that business, that want to be there, it's it can be a very lucrative and very rewarding business. But for us, we had our run and it was great.
Yep.
We made a lot of great connections. If we miss anything, we miss the employees and the customers, obviously.
Yeah.
Just because there were so many great ones. But again, that whole balance of, outside of work, inside of work, my wife jokes that for 15 years at the Diner, I never needed an alarm clock, because by 6 a.m. I'm getting texts every day.
Wow.
I mean, probably the majority of the time. So it just creates it not only becomes what you do, but who you are.
Yeah.
It wanted to separate that a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I'm sure huge learning experience.
Oh yeah, I mean,
like,
you can't even
imagine. Yeah.
No, you can't
sure,
imagine about just learning how to deal with volume, how to deal with staff, how to deal with, any kind of situation that.
Does having a smaller footprint restaurant and having a little more simple of a process, does this seem just easier compared to what you have, or is it?
Yeah.
Is it the same, just different?
It's just relative, yeah. So it's a smaller footprint, so I can almost stand in one spot of this restaurant and kind of see, hear, smell,
everything.
sense a lot of what's going on.
Okay.
I can stand in one spot and read body language from a guest. I can smell if baklava's burning. I can hear if something broke. Restaurant,
That's
kind of
true.
intuitive restaurant stuff that we all grow up with, and
Yeah.
you don't really, no one teaches it to you, but you can kind of see it all and hear it all. At a 9,000 square foot diner, I could be in one spot and then there could just be havoc happening in the backside of the restaurant, because you can't. It's a big footprint. And then dealing with that many employees, it takes an army. We had a lot of really good ones. And anyone that's worked in a restaurant, there's some that are not the best. It's reality.
Sure.
But it just makes it very stressful. Here, it's easier to cultivate that family and team culture.
Okay.
And we've done a really good job of that. And I think it shows in our service. It shows in the guest experience. We come in, I know a lot of it stems from, I think most of it stems from just the attitude that ownership and management walks in with.
Yep.
Positive, again, that family first, that guest first mentality.
Yeah.
And it really trickles down, and we've done a really good job with that.
It's funny you say that. I was just listening to a podcast on the way down here this morning, and it was a business mogul, this lady that I was listening to, and she said that how much culture plays into building and scaling a business. And she said, if I posted a video on YouTube talking about culture can create a $100 million company versus, I took a laundromat and made millions,
Yeah.
the laundromat would get more views just because it sounds better.
Yeah.
But the reality is culture is what builds and sustains and grows a company.
Yeah.
Let's chat about that for a second. Talk about building a culture and a team and an environment. What have you seen in different concepts now, starting a business? You know, I mean, obviously you mentioned a little bit about the family first. I mean, obviously the owner wants to instill his values.
Yep.
But how have you seen that play a big role in your businesses?
Well, listen, you look at the major players in our industry. Obviously, the gold standard is Chick-fil-A. You know, the culture, the service, the level of kind of standards they have, and obviously they have, you know, they're just infinite times bigger than we are. But you can kind of pick up one little thing from each one. You know, is it scripted? Is it trained? Is it genuine? Does it matter if you have a great experience every time you go? So we have that, you know, so you have to give it to them because they do a fantastic job with that. But, you know, it has to be genuine. You can't force your staff to be nice to people. They have to. So how do you create an environment to where it's easier for them to be positive, right? So you have to look at just, you know, little things down to like what's the workload like for each employee coming in to get ready for a busy day? Is it manageable? Is it unrealistic? Well, if it's unrealistic, they're always going to be stressed out. So when it's stressed out and the clock ticks 11 and we open, well, that first guest is going to walk in and get that sense of stress. So it's just how do we kind of, you know, and we have conversations weekly about that, you know, with our managers. We have manager meetings, we have Zoom calls, and just talk about how do we constantly improve, because the more efficient our staff is and the more they feel like they're productive and have a rewarding kind of feeling of a shift, then it kind of tends to, it leads them to be a little more positive, and that spreads to the restaurant. And everyone jumps in and helps each other out and that sort of thing too. So we see that across our stores. Now again, we have 3 with growth plans. If we can get to, you know, when we get to our 5 or we get to, you know, whatever we get to, it could be 5, it could be 15, I don't know. It becomes harder because there's less time for me in each store. Now I can bounce to the stores. But as we grow, that's where it really becomes important to just make sure you have the right people in place that buy into the culture, not just say they buy into it, but genuinely just kind of feel that. And
I agree. I think one other thing, Frank, is that I can physically attest to this is you guys are such a good example of this. The number of times that I've come into this store here in the South End and seen you behind the line, Angelo behind the line, taking orders, helping, extra hand. I mean, that shows that you care about the customer, the experience, the whole thing, right? I mean,
it's a blessing and a curse. It's the way we grew up. The same as you. I mean, you still pull shifts to help out the family.
Yesterday
on top of running marketing and your paper company and everything. So it's kind of ingrained in us to be in the trenches. Now, where's that balance of working in the business and on the business? You know,
That's a good point.
So it's if I'm not behind the line, I could be having marketing meetings and figuring out new, you know, sustainable, you know, paper goods that we can have, or a new product that we can serve. But there's got to be a balance of both. You have to be present in the stores, not only to make sure that we're, you know, sticking to our specs, but also to let the staff know that, hey, listen, you know, we're here for them. You know, I'm every busy shift, I'm somewhere. You know, so we kind of choose our battles. We know where we have to be on certain days, and we're there. We don't stray off of that too much.
I love that. All right, speaking of specs, it's a great transition. Okay, one thing that I have to say, and I'm not just saying this because you're here. I've said it to my brother, my parents. I think the quality of food that you guys have here for a fast casual, I think sometimes, not always, but sometimes fast casual tends to quality of food slip a little bit because it is fast. You know, I guess the same reason why, you know, fast food is fast food. I mean, it's a very quick, you know, it's already made, it's whatever. Gosh, brother, I mean, the chicken thighs that you guys have over the fire, the chicken plate, the gyro, whatever, fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about products that you guys have here. What was the thought process behind it? You know.
So I mean, like I said earlier, we didn't invent fast casual. And there's a ton before us, there's a ton after us. There's a lot of really good ones in town. We're not the only Greek restaurant that does very well. There's a lot of them. So I don't think we see any other Greek restaurants as competition, and as they shouldn't see as competition, because our mindset is, and we wish success on everybody. Like, I get happy when I hear other stores opening a lot of stores, whether it's like concept or not. Our mindset is if we do the right thing inside, everything will take care of itself.
Amen.
I don't, you know, whether someone's $1 cheaper or they're serving a bigger sandwich, that's fine. We know what our model is, and we're constantly evolving. You know, we're not ignorant to what's happening around us, but we we want to focus on what we're doing more than what everyone else is doing. And then when it comes to concept, we wanted to be a little bit different.
Yeah.
To grill a chicken breast and then put it on a pita bread with tzatziki and serve some fries is great.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, there's 100 places to get those in Charlotte, and they're all very good. They're all a little bit different, and not compared to Asian restaurants. I might like the egg rolls here. I might like the pepper beef here, but overall they're all very good.
Yep.
And Greek's the same way. So we're like, how do we make ourselves a little bit different, but scalable?
Yeah.
That's kind of the hard part. Majority of our menu, first of all, everything made in house, and that's like a kind of a non-negotiable for us because
I love that.
Yeah. You have to. Now, is that scalable? We'll face some growing pains at some point.
Yeah.
As we get bigger, and we'll have some decisions to make on like how do we tackle that, keep the integrity of the food, and not say we're going to buy tzatziki because it's easier. But how do we, do we keep the prep in store? Do we commissary it? It's kind of like
which is the growing pains of any growing company, right?
It's a good problem to have.
Yes.
But and we ask a lot of industry people, and we get answers for both sides. Like yes, do it. No, don't do it. It's almost like opening another business. And so we'll kind of, do we find a co-packer that can make things for us?
Yeah.
We don't, obviously our initial, call it egos, call it instinct, we're like, no, we don't want somebody touching our stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's never really, it can get pretty close, but it's not the way we want it.
Yeah.
But again, we wanted to be, recognizable foods. We wanted to be always, fresh and then just constantly evolving with seasonal items. With you walk in a Focal Point, all our restaurants you walk in, you're going to see the big rotisserie.
I love that.
Yeah, moving forward, you don't have chicken just showing up from some magical place like cooked off a grill, off a flat top. We want people to see where it's coming from. It leads to our kind of philosophy of like healthy, because you see it all there.
Yeah.
So again, you have to be recognizable because they can't come in and say, oh, you're Greek, but I just want a gyro. You have to have that.
Yeah.
But you have to have the Greek salad. You have to have certain things. But we said, how can we make it just a little unique, approachable, not too chefy because then it's a turnoff for some people.
Yeah.
And then just obviously you have to have great value, and just fresh. So it's kind of a lot of factors that play into how we do it. And then our background as coming from where we come from, we have to kind of tap the brakes sometimes. So sometimes our minds want to do too much.
Yeah.
Like let's offer this, and then you have to stop and think, okay, how, is that? Can we make it good every single time at every single restaurant all day, 7 days a week from the hours that we're open? Sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes the answer is like, let's figure it out. And sometimes it's not doable. So again, we have to tamper our chef egos every once in a while to make sure that what we put on our menu is reproducible and always going to be the same.
Yeah, that's a good point. Consistency is, I think, a very important factor. Cool story. I just last night was with a friend of mine. He's got a couple of different concepts up in Huntersville and Ballantyne, Cuban restaurants, high-end Latin food. Anyway, he just went last week to LA to look at a bakery. And so very, very high volume bakery. By his math, he said they're probably serving 5,000 to 6,000 people a day. All right, and they have 6 locations. We did some rough math. I think they're probably doing $42 to $45 million a year per location times 6 locations. And I was asking him last night, I was like, was there anything like spectacular? He's like, you know what? The most spectacular is it was consistent.
Yeah.
He's like, these guys probably have 100 people in the back,
yeah,
prepping, working. He's like, there was a line of 75 people, and he's like, and it was done in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Like it just high volume, beautiful location, glass everywhere. But man, it was the same bread, desserts,
that's for us. As a restaurant, being a restaurant business owners, entrepreneurs, like restaurant geeks.
Yes.
You can, and I've been to anything from like a hot dog joint up and I've had dinners at 3 Michelin-star restaurants, everything in between. I appreciate each one for what it is.
Sure.
But what it comes back to is that consistency of like the Chick-fil-A's for the world, for the fast food or casual, something like a Houston's corporation that started, that spawned off a lot of other restaurants, like just militant about consistency and spec. Yeah. And, you can go to one restaurant in Charlotte, go to one in Florida, go to one in Atlanta, and that prime ribs and be cut the same every time.
Same taste, same look.
The same look. The servers are wearing the same shirt, the same lingo coming out of their mouth. So it's just like that's kind of what we keep pressing for.
Yes.
Pressing for. There's a balance of you want it to be not too scripted either.
Yep.
We're casual, and part of our hospitality and part of our concept is like the Greeks were not very scripted people as a culture. We naturally go off script and in a good way, but we teach our staff to create those relationships with our guests.
Yeah.
The ones that come in, we have across our stores, we have people that walk in and we don't have to ask them what they're getting. We just start making it. Yeah. So we it's a little bit of both. You want to be consistent with the food, with how we're serving it, how it looks, how we're cutting it. With experience, you want to be consistent where it's always genuine and pleasant, but personable as well. Yeah.
Side note, I'm just curious for myself, the 3 Michelin star restaurant you went to, was it good?
That was in New York City, Le Bernardin. Yes, it was very, very good. Yeah, it was.
Anything that stands out to you about a Michelin star restaurant that it's different than something else?
You know how serious everybody takes it.
Okay.
That works there.
Okay.
Now listen, I was there doing an event with a chef friend of mine, and the chef owner of Le Bernardin invited us for dinner.
Wow.
And so we had like the full experience, right?
Yeah,
I mean, this is about as good as it gets in New York City. Maybe top 10 at one point, top 10 in the world. Maybe still is. I lost track of it. But just how meticulous they are. Their prep kitchen to their service kitchen is when I say immaculate. Like there's not. I want to say the ceiling was almost like shiny mirrored to where just the whole place was vibrant.
Yes.
And there was people working elbow to elbow, immaculately clean, very quiet.
Yeah.
In the kitchen. And then the food was just over the top. I mean, just things that you would never pair together. The level of service, from the wine service to the greet to the, it's not an everyday meal, obviously, when you can run up a tab like that. But for people that are into food, I would say definitely, create a bucket list of places to visit if you're into the food.
Yeah.
Food and service and just atmosphere, because there are really some special places. Charlotte obviously has some really special places as well, but you don't have to go too far.
Yeah.
Atlanta, DC, New York, within an hour flight, you can hit some really incredible.
I was talking to a chef friend of mine, Chef Kyle, at Community Matters Cafe, and he has a friend of his in Chicago that works at, I think, a 3 Michelin star restaurant. Yeah. And so he said he's been to a couple of them, and he said 1, 2, 3, the food's going to be good. Yeah. But at 3, the level of service and attention to detail is bar none. He said that they had gotten there, he had a couple drinks or whatever. He got to his seat and dropped his towel accidentally on one side. And he said by the time he looked down for it and came back up, they had picked it up and another warm towel was on his lap ready. Like just insane.
Yeah, there's service is what separates it. And again, through our years of working, we came up in that world of fine dining and kind of segued into where we are now. But that kind of stuff still geeks us out here and that kind of thing. And having especially worked in it in New York, we did a little bit, and I worked with Pano in Atlanta, and I would hear stories about he worked at the French Laundry. So this very big inspirational piece for him to kind of impose that culture on us as well. Yeah. And I would hear stories of people that, like your story, probably one of the craziest ones I ever heard was, I think this was back in the probably early 2000s in France at, I think, one of Alain Ducasse's restaurants, which was, like the mecca of 3-star Michelin places. And 3 people walked into the restaurant. The maitre d' was there, and the maitre d' instantly sized them up and greeted each of theirs in their own language.
What?
Yes, there was one was I think French, one might have been, let's say, Russian, and one was Spanish, and instantly sized them up and greeted them. So just way over the top stuff.
Wow.
Like if the dining room was chilly, they would come and bring a cashmere scarf for a woman, but it would match her outfit.
Oh my!
So they'd have a whole tray of a slew of colors, and if you're wearing black, if you're wearing pink. So just things that is so over the top to get, but the pressure to keep that 3rd star.
Oh my God! Is it high?
Oh, it's I mean, chefs have, I don't want to say push them to the brink, but it has, because that star is or to lose a star is a
big
huge
deal.
huge deal. Yeah.
Do you like fine dining?
I do, for the artistry of it.
Okay.
Business model, I don't know that I would, if I had what's the saying? How do you get the $1 million in a restaurant? Start with 2.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Yeah. So fine dining is, it's a very tight business model, because you might see prices on the menu, right? Like, oh my God, they charge $38 for an appetizer. But man, the money that goes behind that, you're sitting in an $800 chair, that's a $40 wine glass.
Yeah.
Your sommelier is making $150,000 a year. The chef's making that much, if not more. You got expensive products. You're carrying inventory that's super expensive. It's
Labor, cost of goods, everything has got to be so high.
It's razor thin, and then the scary part is that once there's a little bit of uncertainty in our economy, that's the first one. That restaurant's the first one to reservations to dwindle.
Yeah.
Expense accounts go away. People are not going to spend $500 on dinner. They're not going to order a $200 bottle of wine. They might just have a glass. Everything's kind of. So that's what my apprehension. Do I understand it? Have I been in it? Do I think we're capable? Yes. Is it the best model for us right now? Not yet.
Yeah.
If you get
So as a consumer, you love it.
Oh,
as a
yeah,
business,
sure.
You're like, you know what?
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I can go in the place and like, man, these guys really, they
know
really
what they're doing.
know what they're doing. They spend a fortune in here. I hope they get it all back fast. But some people have been for the right reasons, some not for the right reasons. Sometimes someone with a bunch of money will put all their eggs in one basket, and they have zero idea how a kitchen works, and they'll just, hey, I have this chef that's great, and I want to open a restaurant. I'm like, well, and we've had a conversation with people local that come to us and say, hey, man, what do you think? I have this location. I think I got this guy. He's a chef. He's been at my local country club. He's super talented. What do you think? We're going to open this place. Like, and one of our questions, me, Angel, and Stratus will look at him dead in the face. What are you going to do if he walks out? And they can't answer that. So if you feel comfortable enough that you can pick up from this guy leaves, and he may not.
Yeah.
But what if?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and they can't answer it, and we're not trying to scare people, but like that's the reality.
Yeah.
You can't, unless the chef is your brother, and even that sometimes you don't know.
Yeah.
But unless you can pick up the pieces and run with it, and not skip a beat, you have to be really, really careful about that level of place. You can find a grill cook, you can find a saute guy, you can find a pastry cook, but for someone to carry on your vision, and also chef has to be a businessman too. Anyone can create a nice dish, but a chef has to be able to understand food costs,
to order properly,
order properly, labor costs, not spend
relationships, the whole thing.
Yeah, buying paper from the right place, buying his fish from the right place, not waste. The saying of not all chefs are good cooks, not all cooks are good chefs. It's kind of so it's there's a lot that goes into that. And I think that's why some of the most successful restaurateurs started like we did in the back.
Yeah.
Because you have to understand and kind of be able to call out a chef, because once a chef smells that the owner has no idea what's going on, then
over.
Game over. Yeah.
And not even just chef. I think any business.
Yeah.
When the employee, when the main guy, when the leader, when the superintendent, whatever, you fill in the thing. I think honestly, I think it's good advice for anybody that owns anything. Like, you better be able to step into any position, hop on a truck, make a delivery, pull an order.
At minimum, know how it works.
Exactly.
At minimum, I mean, not everybody that's invested in a restaurant works in a restaurant. I know there's some absentee owners and people have kind of minor partnerships, and maybe the operating partner doesn't want the investor in. But you should have somewhat of an idea, because you never know. It's your money involved, and if you're okay with just your money just getting your investment that could have been put somewhere a lot safer, because we all know restaurants not the safest investment.
Yeah.
If you should, people will study a stock for 6 months before they buy it. But someone say, hey man, I'm gonna open a bar, you wanna put in $100,000, I'll put it in, without even thinking about it, right?
Isn't that so funny?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. So there's success stories, but unfortunately, I think there's a lot more failures than successes. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, let's talk about scaling a business.
Yeah.
All right. I think this is something cool that you guys have done and are continuing to do. Is you're always studying, looking, talking.
Yeah.
You even have other people. I think it was you or somebody that told me, like, out west, you guys start talking to different people, CFOs that are you're just. I love that. I love that you're continuing to learn. You don't have an ego about it. I know everything. We know what we're doing. So let's just discuss. You have 3 locations now. 1, 2, 3. Scaling now this concept to 3, and then obviously, then growing more. What does it take to scale? What are you thinking about? How do you find a good location? What? Give me
Yeah.
some parameters.
So, so obviously the model's that'll work. So we feel pretty comfortable now that, again, we wouldn't say, I don't think any restaurant model's a home run, because you can pick a dud of a concept. You can have a location that is not the best. You can have a location where you can't find staff for it. So, but we feel pretty strong that for now, for where we are in Charlotte at our stage, that we can put a few more in this area.
Yes.
And confidently open up and not feel like it's a huge, I mean, it's a risk, right?
Sure.
But we feel confident that we can sustain, obviously our 3 stores have done well, and then we have 2 more in the pipeline, 1 this year, 1 next. So we feel confident enough to move forward. Now, through the process of that, when you go from 1 store to 2, you go 2 to 3, and when you go 3, we're going to go to 5, things change, right? So I can't be in this store every day at 9 a.m. and at Stonecrest for dinner and popping into Baxter or stopping by Ilios Noche. It spreads our time thinner.
Yeah.
So you have to also take into account as you grow now, at what point do you add an extra layer of management? Our technology has to grow as well to sustain, because once you get to 3 to 4 to 5 stores and more, even the guest expects more from you too. You have to have your technology, your apps, your online ordering, make sure.
That makes sense.
Yeah, all that stuff. So you have to grow, and not just opening locations, but to grow the way we want to grow, we got to grow the right way. So we ask a lot of questions by people that are, been in the industry for a long time, local guys, Greek and non-Greek, because it's good to get both sides.
Yeah.
There's like one way of thinking on the Greek side, and then another way on the other side, and we kind of choose bits and pieces and kind of weave them together to kind of move our way forward. Listen to our families, obviously. You probably grew up like me, is very shrewd business. If it doesn't make money, doesn't make sense. Greeks don't always think about the long game.
Yeah.
They think about how can I make money from day one, which is nothing wrong with that. But sometimes you got to take a little bit of a sacrifice to get over that hump, to grow. At what point do you add like a regional manager, district manager, someone that can kind of be like myself and bounce around stores and upkeep, uphold the specs, the standards, make sure the stores are presented properly, running properly, all that.
Fill in the gaps where needed.
Filling gaps, jumping in. So that's an investment. So you have to keep investing as you move forward.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So we're investing on our technology, as far as like back of the house, with some new software. But it's it's growing pains moving forward. Then you had there's the HR piece that comes into play, because we're a growing company as well.
Yeah.
So you can't handle every. You can't. Luckily, it's a non-issue, but one day it might be an issue where you have to have your HR things in place.
Yeah.
And so growing it's not just about opening and cooking food. It's about kind of the broad spectrum, and it's a lot involved.
That's a good point. I think that's the part where people don't even not even understand. They just don't realize there's so much on the back end: payroll, numbers, logistics.
Yeah.
Give me the information. Hey, my check is wrong. Who fixes that?
Exactly.
I mean, there's so many things.
I mean, just keeping up with vacations. We offer vacations to all our full-time employees.
Yes.
Right. So just kind of tracking that across 3 stores now is like.
That's a job.
Yeah, I mean, it can be.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to tell someone no when they're due a vacation.
Yeah. Exactly.
Any of our full-time employees, manager or not, gets a vacation. So like you said, so that's.
Which even that is an investment, which probably our dads.
Never, no,
do.
Yeah, they probably, if some place. Yeah,
For what?
They get a little envelope on Christmas, so it's there's a lot involved. Menu development. We got to stay on top of our menu. 80% of our menu is probably not going to change, but that other 20% of our seasonal items and what are people asking for? What trends do you get? I mean, just last week we were having a conversation about, how do we get away from seed oils? Can we? Is it doable? Because if we switch to tallow, then we alienate vegetarians and vegans. So it's kind of like there's a lot of stuff that when it comes to growing, it's not just finding a location and putting a rotisserie in there and slinging food. It's just about how do you grow the right way as a company.
Yeah. Love that. Okay, let's wrap up with this. Let's talk a little bit about the food industry in Charlotte.
Yeah.
What are you seeing? Obviously, we're coming out of the summer. We're in early September right now. What are you seeing in the market, this year? For us, this year's been a little bit weird, a little bit different.
Yeah.
So competition, number of restaurants opening, is business a little bit down? It's an election year. What are you seeing happening in the industry as a whole? Having a lot of friends in the industry, having relationships with distributors and reps and management. What are you guys seeing as a company, just in general?
Yeah,
Good, bad. I mean, everything.
I mean, I think we're past the COVID thing, but it was still fresh in everybody's mind of like coming out of COVID and staffing and just the kind of the adjustments and the kind of pivots we had to make as businesses, some good, some learning lessons, some change, a lot of things changed for the good.
Yep.
So that's, we don't like talking about that anymore. So, but it did help us make some adjustments.
Yeah.
And kind of tweak our model in a good way. As far as Charlotte, Charlotte in the last, let's not say 5 years, like the last 10, 15 years, I think we've really seen the impact that even like Johnson & Wales has made on Charlotte. Right? So it's you have kids that went to that school that stayed in Charlotte, and it really just kind of boosted the food scene because kids are aspiring chefs. They come on.
That's a good point.
And I think that has a lot to do with why Charleston is the way it is. As far as the food scene, very, very strong food scene in Charleston.
Yes.
Johnson & Wales was there. I think it kind of cultivated that chef-type atmosphere. Now the kids coming out of there, they all stick around, they all stay in the industry, I don't know. But it kind of helped start the process, let's say 10, 15 years ago. And then I think it just kind of built momentum from that to where it is now.
Yes.
The consumer's way more educated now than ever.
I agree.
If it's because of, it used to be the Food Network. Everyone was geeked out on that.
Yeah.
But now I think it's, whether it's social media, TikTok, people following celebrity chefs, it's
all the above.
All the above. People, they know. I don't have to explain to people that our Greek salad doesn't have lettuce in it because everyone knows. Like a lot more people know than they don't.
Yeah.
10, 15 years ago,
nobody knew.
I'd get cursed out for not having, where's my iceberg? So it's definitely evolved. The food scene in Charlotte's great.
Yeah.
Where our list of places, my wife and I want to go out with, friends or just the two of us for dinner, where our list used to be 4 or 5 places. Now it's like, man, there's so many places that we want to try that.
Yep.
How do we get to them?
Yep.
So it's really, really come a long way. And the fact that Charlotte's just been exploding.
It really has.
It really has. Like just every so often you see an article that comes out it's growing just as fast as another big
XYZ.
city.
Yeah.
So now what that brings in, big companies coming in, bringing in people with, expendable income that demand these restaurants. So it's growing in that way. Now on the flip side, you're starting to see some places close.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think some of the smaller places, either ownership has gotten just kind of, they ran their course in the industry and it's time for them to get out, or not the greatest concepts or locations. I think, we've seen some breweries close here in Charlotte. I think we're a little oversaturated at one point. You're starting to see some of the smaller ones now, unfortunately, not make it through these times. But as far as in our sector, as fast casual, my general sense is that everyone's doing pretty well. The stores that are doing, have a fine operation or are growing, whether it's, Greek or Mexican or
family style, whatever.
Yeah, like the ramen places or whatever it might be. Like a lot of places are
sushi.
Yeah, it's just there's still a ton of demand. People are not going to stop cooking.
Yeah.
I mean, people aren't going to just start cooking 10 times more at home.
Yeah.
We see cycles in business, obviously. When school starts, things might soften up a little bit. During the holidays, things are mayhem. January is January everywhere. For us, we have a pretty good sense of when it's coming and how long it's going to stay. Now with almost 5 years of history, also it varies by location as well, because you might see, the one side of town booming when the other side is not, just because of, is it more suburban, is it more, South End is more young professionals that are gone on the holidays.
Yeah.
So it varies, but overall the sense is, I feel like there's more confidence in restaurant owners now than there was maybe a year and a half ago.
Gotcha.
Staffing is a huge piece of that.
I agree.
Yeah, so we, staffing is, it's not the hottest topic as it was
2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah. 2 years ago, I mean, it was just like, it was impossible to get anybody in, and if they come in, they weren't necessarily the best fit, and their pay rates became an auction. You know, like
Yeah.
I offer you this, no, I need this, okay, I offer you this, and it's like, and all the while you're doing it, you're like, this person can't even cut an onion, and they're demanding, GM money. It's like, what are we doing? But I think things have kind of leveled off there. Cost of goods haven't.
Yeah.
That's not getting any better. We listen. Obviously, the easiest way to raise revenue is to raise prices. We're very conscious about that.
Yeah.
You can't charge $20 for a sandwich.
Yeah.
Would it be great? Sure. Are you gonna, is that gonna work? It's gonna work against you. But what we see is like it's hard to get. Now you're on the paper side, but on the food side, it's hard to get the deals, right?
Mm-hmm.
As far as just talking restaurant talk.
Yeah.
It's hard to get the guys that come in and say, hey, you're buying this. Okay, if you're buying that many cases a week, we can give you an aggressive deal. Has
gone away?
A little bit. It's not as, we're buying just a crazy amount of one product, our chicken, right? You would think we'd get the attention of someone for saying, hey, these guys are buying 1,200 pounds a week per store,
yeah,
if not more.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, okay, that's cool, but we can't really do anything for you. So what that puts a squeeze on us, and then we hate to put the squeeze on the guest, but at some point something's got to give.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I'm not sure that it's ever going to come back, but things like our olive oil, is different factors. That's not a labor factor; it's an import factor, and that's shot up, and we buy a lot of it. That's doubled in price.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's where it used to be already expensive, now it's just ultra expensive. Now, again, what do? We absorb that cost. We don't want to raise it, and it's a significant amount per store.
Yeah, that's tough.
And you would think olive oil, a big deal, but it's
when it's used for so many of your items.
We buy a ton of it. So we didn't say, okay, let's just stop using olive oil. Let's put in like the cheaper version or whatever. Because we don't want to change the food.
Yeah.
We'll find a different way to kind of choose our battles financially, but it's just once you start that process of, I'm very popular today.
Busy man.
Once you start that process of just kind of cutting quality, then it becomes like a spiral. Well, we save this much, now we can save this much here, and you keep doing it. And then 5 changes later, your food doesn't taste like it should.
I think 2 things that I took away from what you just said. One is, when slow seasons are going to be. So if you're a business owner, prepare. Don't wait.
Yeah.
If you have a couple of good months, don't be siphoning money out of the business.
Yeah.
Make sure your business is healthy, because right now it's booming. Next month you don't know. Okay, because olive oil may double. Okay, so you don't know. I think that's
your AC unit may break, right? I mean,
exactly.
how much does that cost? You're never ready for
8,
that.
10, 12, 15 grand.
Depending on the
whatever
unit.
It is.
You're lucky if it's 8. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's one other thing. Another thing that I've been telling some of my customers that have been a little slower, I tell them, you got to continue to play offense.
Yeah.
You can't sit back
and wait
and play defense and just hope somebody do something.
Yeah.
Make some posts. Make some calls.
Something.
See who needs a catering. Have a book of people that you've done caterings with in the past. Call them. See how they're doing.
You'd be surprised how much.
Have a newsletter. Something.
You got to stay in the top. Like I said, like my wife needs to have a list of 5 places. You got to be in that list of top 10 places that the consumer hits. So they're constantly hitting you, and you're constantly reminding them, not badgering them.
No.
You don't want to blow them up with, just reoccurring texts and emails.
Don't be annoying.
Yeah.
But you can't not ever do anything.
You got to stay fresh in their minds.
100%. So I think that's a suggestion that I have for anybody out there that's experiencing a little bit of a kind of a downturn, or
it's tough, man. When you're a family-run place, and you're as an owner, you're wearing 10 different hats.
Yes.
You're in the kitchen. You're on the cashier. You're repairman.
You're
ordering. You're scheduling. You're repairing. And just to tell a restaurateur like that, whether it's a super casual place or like a finer dining place, of like, hey man, you need to start working on social media. Like when?
Yeah.
It's like, when am I going to do it? I have this one called out. This is broken. I got to run to.
I get it.
You get this. It's hard. It really is. But you have to, at least try to carve out some time.
You do.
Make it or pay somebody to do it.
Yeah.
But
if you can afford to, but if not, you've got to. The only point I had, Frank, was you have to do something.
You got to do something.
It literally breaks me when I see restaurants close. I hate to see somebody's dream just dwindle and just. So listen, I don't want that. You don't want that. Stay on offense.
No, you have to. And you'd be surprised. Even like find your best server that's super savvy with social media. That's it. Hey, listen, here's X amount.
Sure.
I don't want anything for free, but here's X amount. do me a nice post, picture, jazz it up. Just here's our special tonight.
Yes.
Send it out, because
I agree.
you got to stay out. You got to stay relevant, because in this day and age, with social media, the AIs of the world, whatever, the ones that we're good at are getting a lot better.
Yes.
The ones that weren't doing anything are just falling behind a lot quicker.
Yes.
So you got to stay on top. And even with menu offerings, you can't just offer the same
stuff.
suited stuff. You got to keep the stuff that works, but keep it interesting as well.
Innovate.
Yeah, you have to. Not to the point where you're changing your model, but just kind of to where you keep it interesting. Where every time they're going to come in, they might say, "Hey, what do y'all have this week?"
Yeah.
You know, in addition to what we already love. Yeah.
Awesome. Anything else? Any last thoughts? Are you good?
That's it, man. I think it's great. I hope I don't wait another 5 years to do it again. Yeah.
Well, listen, I love this. Hey, guys, if you guys have not visited Ilios Crafted Greek, they have 3 convenient locations.
Yep.
We're in South End, Fort Mill,
and
Baxter Village.
And Ballantyne and
and then
Stonecrest.
Ballantyne, Stonecrest. Amazing food. I'm a customer. Obviously, friend and all that, but, man, the food quality is tremendous. And so anyway, stop by, support these guys, follow them on other platforms for updates on what they're doing and what's new and, you know, menu items. And so anyway, with that, appreciate it, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Yep, thanks.